In this video we're going to be taking a look at some tips for theater of war. Some of them are very basic and some of them are more advanced. First thing we're going to be taking a look at is the settings and the way I have my settings set up for the game. Now everybody has their own preferences, but these are mine. On gameplay, I have lowest ranking units coming out first on the field when I deploy. And I have this set up because some people, freak out if one of their high ranking units gets killed out, but if you have it on lowest ranking first, your units tend to rank up more evenly across your whole battalion. So, instead of having, only 2 or 3 really high ranking guys, I may not have the highest ranking guys, but I have them all around even. So, whenever a unit gets killed, I'm not freaking out about it because I have several more who can take its place. So for me, that works out best. One thing we're going to be taking a look at is your camera view. I have mine set on high always, but I'm going to show you the difference. This is a close view. As you see, it's flat. You really can't see nothing. You get a good view of your battalion, and it's really cool whenever some action happens. But notice the difference when you go to high. All of a sudden you can see your landscape a whole lot better. You can see things that you couldn't see before. It gives you a good perspective on your enemy, what they're doing, where they're going, what your allies are doing. So for me, setting your camera height to high is almost a definite must. Now we're going to be taking a look at identifying support uplinks. It's always important when you're playing against an enemy with supports that you know what type of support they're going to be throwing at you, whether it be force recon, airstrikes, or simply electronic warfare. So it's real easy to identify the bases just by looking at them. Electronic warfare will always have a satellite dish on top with a laser shooting towards the sky. This is an airstrike uplink. It will always have a radar on top turning. And finally, we have a force recon uplink, which can be identified by the tower that sits on top of it. It doesn't move or anything, it's just a standard tower. And it's always good to know what kind of bases your enemy has, so therefore you know what uplinks you want to work on as far as artillery in them or destroying them, or actually maybe going in there, deep striking and taking away that support. There's 2 different times that an enemy cannot come in and take an uplink away from you. And those times are if you secure an uplink first, you're in the process of securing it, or if you're upgrading it. Therefore, if a enemy is coming in trying to take a base from you, you can actually change an upgrade or upgrade the base in order to keep that enemy from coming in on you. You can still be wounded. It's not a glitch or anything like that. It's a smart way to play. If you're the enemy trying to take an uplink from a person who's doing this to you, the best thing to do is to tell your enemies or to tell your units to take cover inside the uplink instead of trying to attack and secure it. You want to remember, after you secure an uplink and you're ready to protect it, you want to move your men to the vantage point of where you're most likely to be attacked from. So therefore, in this situation, I'm most likely to see men coming across the field from this direction, so I'm going to move them closest to that direction. That way they can get early sights on anybody coming in, and they can start wounding them before they can be hit. And I always like to place my men in the corner of the uplinks. I've found that this is the best area to give the best cover for my men. You want to remember, when you have supports on a map, that you don't rely solely on your supports to win you the game, because they will not win you the game. Too many people walk into a match thinking they have airstrikes so they can just take it easy, airstrike death the other team, and they'll win. And if you're going up against anybody who's halfway decent, airstrikes are going to hurt you worse than they help you. There are certain times to use airstrikes, but they're called supports because they're there to support you, not to fight the entire match with. You got to remember, it's better to have a unit out on the field for 4 points rather than waste an airstrike to only wound a unit and not even destroy it. There are some good times to use airstrikes. I have them listed here. I like to use them against artillery pieces if I can't get them out by other means. The other way you can use airstrikes is by killing a deep strike that's trying to come in maybe late in the game. And although this is not a deep strike right here, it works the same exact way. You would press your LB button on top and scroll over using your directional pad to highlight the airstrike unit. And once the unit has lifted off the ground and has the men inside it, I would simply press A on the target, and the airstrike will come in and destroy the transport chopper and kill the units inside. You know, a lot of people don't like to kill units, but if you're late in the game and you know the other team could deep strike an empty base and win, you know, that's one way to stop that from happening. Force Recon is one of the most underrated tools in the game. Most of your good players are going to be using Force Recon if they have that support available to them. Level 1 Force Recon is really only good for reconnaissance and against gunships. Level 2 and Level 3 comes out with tanks, which is really good against anything. I like to place Force Recons in the enemy's landing zone or in bottleneck areas of a map like Shenandoah, where people have to come through. Or if I see an arty piece that's giving me trouble, I can send the Force Recon to that artillery piece, and it'll wound, you know, everything that's in the path to it. They're very powerful supports. You know, it's one of the best uses for CP in the game. What I like to do is I like to place rally points and send the Force Recon to the rally points. I don't really like sending them to the bases themselves, because an artillery piece, if it's already hitting a enemy base, it's going to wound your Force Recon that's surrounding it. So I like to send it to other points by using the rally point function. Now, the way the Force Recon works is you can have a total of 4 out on the field. So for instance, if you have level 1 Force Recon, you can call in 4 level 1 Force Recons. If you have level 2 Force Recons, you could call in 2 level 2 Force Recons. Any way you add it up, you can only have 4 out on the field. So lastly, if you had a level 3 Force Recon, you could call out 1 level 3 Force Recon and then follow it up by calling out a level 1 Force Recon. Me personally, I only like to use 2 level 2 Force Recons. Level 2s are very powerful, and I can send one in, you know, 2 different directions, which is going to cause damage on both sides of the map. Or if I call them in back to back, they're more powerful, I feel like, than a level 3 plus 1. Electronic warfare. You got to remember, you have it on every single map that you play on. You start out with, if you upgrade to that. There's tons of uses for it. You can blind your enemy when you're entering an uplink to keep them from knowing that you're about to take an uplink. You can EMP an airstrike, drop the shields on an enemy to get away from it. Or, you know, if you're a tank and you got a gunship on you, then you could EW the gunship until your transports can come and back you up. Finally, we're going to be taking a look at attacking a target. Usually if you're a unit attacking another unit, if you tell it to attack and the unit's running away, it could be this constant fire, stop fire, stop fire, where the enemy could get away from you. What you need to do instead of telling it to attack the unit is just have your unit close enough and tell them to follow in the same path as your enemy's following. Your unit will automatically fire on the enemy, and this keeps that cat and mouse type game from going on. Another good use for it is if you're in a transport versus a gunship. A gunship may be EMP'd or right above you. Instead of telling your transport to attack the gunship, just tell your transport to drive under the gunship. Your transport will automatically fire on the gunship, and you know, you'll actually be able to get a lot more shots fired on that target. This is it for this video as far as tips and hints go. If there's any tips that you're looking for, just shoot me a message or leave a comment, and I'll try to help you out the best I can. Hope you enjoyed.